allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll open up the public comment. Is there public comment?
As mentioned last week by Commissioner Delger, there was going to be an agenda item or a post for public notice on the special counsel, authorization for special counsel. I don't see it on the agenda, and I also don't see it on the notice.
Corey, you can address that if you would.
Yeah, I was asked to come down and briefly address that. So the Attorney General has appointed Marty Lambert, who's the Gallatin County Attorney, as a Special Assistant Attorney General to address only issues, the issues that I would be conflicted from, and issues specifically addressing any allegations of official misconduct. So that is where we're at. So that means that, you know, any cases related to that, I certainly couldn't comment on or be involved in. So that's about the extent of where I'm happy to provide at this point.
Okay, was there, how were we notified of that?
I received a letter, the letter that Mr. Lambert received. He sent me a copy of it, scanned an email, and asked me to provide it to the commissioners, and I provided it. I don't remember the exact time. I'm going to guess end of the day Wednesday or possibly Thursday.
Okay, is the public able to have a copy of that?
I will ask Mr. Lambert. I don't know the answer to that question. I think it may be a public document, but I would rather someone else answer that question.
Okay. And then I have another question. So on July 8th, there was a trust board closed door meeting. On the agenda, it just said personnel. I'd like to know the reasons that meeting was closed to the public. The public has the right to know.
It was just basically a meeting between the trust board and commissioners on some policies and some actions that had been taken.
And what made that not open to the public?
It was just some things that we didn't feel were needed to be in the open.
Was the preliminary budget discussed?
No, I don't believe so.
Were there contracts?
Some of their budget issue was discussed, because they had transferred the entire amount of their money into their budget. So if you just leave $800,000 in there to spend, you can spend.
Okay.
So and the reason that we kind of did, we wanted to restrict that to a certain amount, so that the whole fund wasn't open.
Okay, so according to NCA, the reasons to have a closed door meeting is for right of privacy to an employee, as well as litigation strategy. Was either one of those reasons? I mean, is there a threat of litigation between the county and the trust board?
No, there's no litigation between the county and the trust board.
Is there, so what was the reason for closing that meeting?
I think we just wanted to have a more open discussion. It probably really should have been a working meeting.
So it should have been a public meeting?
I would think so.
Right. So does the public have the right to know what happened in that meeting? Is there minutes to show?
I don't know that did we take minutes, or we just pretty much?
We're required to have minutes of all closed doors.
Yeah, I don't know if we advertise the closing meeting, we're really not allowed to open those without it. I think you have to give them to Corey has a file, and you have to have a district court order to open them up.
But since it should have been a public meeting to begin with, an open door meeting, should that not have been?
I would leave that to the legal people.
Oh, what legal people?
Or Corey, I would assume.
Corey, should that have been a public meeting or a closed door meeting?
So at the beginning of the closed door portion of it, so it was announced to be closed specifically by the commission for some issues that to be addressed. At the beginning of the closed door meeting, at least one of the members of the trust board asked, why is this closed door meeting, it should be open, and there was advice, well, no, there is an issue we need to address. There was one personnel issue I think is appropriately a closed door deal that was discussed at the outset, and I would, all right, let me put it this way. I think if the chairman were to say that needed to be discussed closed door, I don't think that anyone would probably disagree or say that was an error. I think conversation probably did go into some things that, like Commissioner Delger said, that were more of working issues. So the question is how to address that, and I can can certainly look at it and figure that out. I don't know if there were minutes taken.
Was it recorded?
I don't know.
Was it recorded?
No,
It was not.
we don't record closed doors.
Okay, so we had a closed door meeting that should have been a portion of it, with a small amount of it being closed door. But the public has no idea what their right to know information was during that meeting.
And mostly discussion would revolve around the budget issue of whether or not to put the whole $800,000 into the budget, or just to put $150,000 in the budget with the remainder to be allowed to be drawn on.
So you're confirming though that it should have been a working meeting? an open
Probably,
meeting?
yes.
Thank you. That's all of my questions.
Okay, thank you.
But I think with an exception, there was a portion that I think would properly be considered a closed door personnel issue.
Okay, so one item off of the entire thing.
And I don't know if commissioners, you guys want me to work to reconstruct some minutes from that meeting? I can try to do that with either you or the other participants.
Yeah, we could probably try to work through that.
Okay.
And then you'll get those to me or to the public?
Well, it would need to be minutes brought to both organizations to approve the minutes.
Okay.
So I'll work on that.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you're also gonna find out if that letter can be made public from the Attorney
I'll
General's
ask
office?
Mr. Lambert.
Any other public comment? Yes, Dwayne?
This Dwayne Hall. This speaker system that been asked for, what's going on with that?
The what?
The speaker system, because we can't hear you.
So I'll answer that. So I actually talked to a contractor last week. He's supposed to come down and do a evaluation of the room and make a recommendation of what we can do and give us a cost on that. So
Wasn't there a $5,000 allocated for it a couple years ago?
I don't know anything about that.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not since I've been here either.
In what place? In this room?
No, upstairs. In the courthouse, or in the courtroom.
Oh, in Portland. Before I became county attorney, they had put in a system. Is Val here? Val can tell us. Before I was here.
Yeah, we actually have two systems in the courtroom. One was bought by the Missouri Drug Task Force with their money, and the other was provided by the Supreme Court. The one that is the Supreme Court is actually a standalone unit that can be moved from place to place. And that's the one we use right now in the courtroom.
Thank you, Val.
I guess I would add to that, I have received notice from the DUI task force that they're willing to fund a new television for displaying videos and photos during trials. I just haven't completed that, but that would be just for display of those things. It wouldn't necessarily address like, hearing witnesses or judges or whatever through their microphones. It wouldn't address that.
Tim?
Tim Ravendall, citizen, been following this for quite a while, and I did talk to Commissioner Folkberg a little bit about this. Just for clarification, the question just raised, that was addressed when the commissioners were meeting in this room, just across the hallway, in that meeting room of the commission, putting in a sound, video, audio system. There was a local citizen that came in and gave a presentation to the commission at that particular time. Time goes by pretty fast. I'm not sure exactly how long ago that was. I'm gonna say, to be safe, I'm gonna say at least 5 years ago. That did get put on the table for consideration. Never did go any further. There was a cost presented to the commission at that time. And then I did talk to, again, Mr. Volkford about trying to get that local resurrected. So I'm not sure if that's who's coming in next week or if it's a new person, but
It's gonna be somebody new, I mean,
Anyway,
yeah, I don't know what happened in the past, I think it's best when we just start.
starting from scratch,
And
from
move
new,
forward, yeah.
would be good, because we're in a different room with the system anyway. So it will be great to be able to do that. I'm doing the best I can to help get that information out and people can hear. So thank you, and that's where my input is on that.
Thank you. Any further comments?
I just have one question for Val. I know in my department, certain things are bought by different grants and they can only be used by that grant. So if her system was bought by the Supreme Court, it may only be able to be used for that purpose and not be able to be transferred down here. So that's something you may have to look at.
Any other public comment? Okay, we'll go ahead, here we got, minutes from July 15th and July 22nd.
I will move to approve both sets of minutes as presented.
Motion been made and second to approve minutes from July 15th and July 22nd. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, Shirley Wilson, can we ask why minutes are so old to be approved? Because it's very difficult to know what's happening when they're published in the paper if they're 2 to 3 weeks old. Can we know why they're that old? Before publishing or before approval?
We sent them to the paper, that's as far as,
But you just approved mid-June,
no, these are July.
mid-July.
July
That's 2 weeks ago.
15th was 2 weeks ago because we had some corrections on them from last week.
Okay.
The one the 22nd is just from last Monday.
I know, but that wasn't the only one.
I have a letter here from DEQ for the Western Sugar Cooperative for water quality for Billings facility, water waste digest. DEQ Waste and Underground Tank Management Bureau verification of address. See claims in the amount of $79,204.94.
Move to approve the claims and set them up.
And I will second the motion to pay the approved claims. In the same amount.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the claims and set them out. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Another set of claims in the amount of $211,254.41.
I will move to pay the approved claims in the amount of $211,254.41.
Motion been made and seconded to approve claims and set them out. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. 10-15, fiscal year 20 county budget PILT allocations, personnel, special request, cash reserve, steady. There are copies of this PILT worksheet here if anyone wants one.
Thank you.
There is no more.
So I guess one of the questions that we had in the last meeting, Debbie, was the first line on there, the economic development impact, all that membership. Is that a duplicate of the one that's down in the lower right hand?
This lower right hand
Yeah,
is just for the proceeds from the Wheatland journalings.
right.
So what will be reflected up here, but PILT, the proceeds were put into PILT. So this is to track how much of those dues, membership fees, that the journalings proceeds covered
Okay,
last year.
okay. And I don't know, I guess, did we discuss it, we would pay for that out of the attorney fund?
That's why, Laura had requested that there be some sort of way to track it.
Right,
And so that's why this is on here, is a all-in-one at a snapshot.
gotcha, all right, so that's the.
So this will be for this year, so
Yeah.
when you approve it, some of the proceeds that are still out in PILT will come from those proceeds to cover that.
Gotcha, okay, all right, good enough. I just wanted to make sure we had it in two different places.
Yeah, no, it's so that you can verify that it's paid for the economic development, which is what the turnings were as a result of. It had come out from there, so it's going back in. So it's not going for cost advocates, for example.
Right.
It's going straight to economic types of things that it was designed to cover.
Okay. I guess the other thing I wanted to talk about was our public safety vehicle CIP. So we only have 20,000 there. I know that we committed to, we asked them to balance their budget, we put that money they had in there for the vehicles out of that budget. And we committed to help them through the PILT process, is that right? So, Brandon, you can kind of jump in when you want. So I guess the information I have is 39,522, that's the fleet price for each new vehicle?
Yeah,
All right. And you're asking for two, is that correct?
two. We do have a department, DES, would like to purchase one of our ones we're gonna be rotating out. And we can move that partially set up for him, so it's not providing us, these scenes with no lighting equipment or anything like that. And I think he roughly has 6,000 that he's willing to spend
happy with increasing that CIP. However, I do think it needs to be, just like with our other departments, CIP where we build it over the years, so that there's always something in there we can build on, rather than this year we need this much, this year we need this much. The other comment I would have on that is, since we are purchasing those vehicles through the CIP program, I would like to see, not a purchase for the cycled out vehicles, but more what it was done last year with extension. The cycled out vehicle then goes to the rest of the county that doesn't need to have the more newer equipment with no miles.
Did anybody express another need, you know, Brad, for the other vehicle at this time?
Well, we have the need for our detention transport because we rotated out that one vehicle, so that's where the other one would go.
Okay.
And, you know, I mean, I do agree that something needs to be, some sort of plan needs to go in to build on that CIP. Unfortunately, buying one vehicle over the last few years has put us behind, and I guess unless you wanna put more money in there now that wouldn't be spent, that's your guys' decision. But it does need, somehow we need to figure out a replacement plan and funding that builds on that.
Right. So if you were to purchase these vehicles this year, you wouldn't have to purchase any for,
Next year, we would need to again.
you would, so that's the cycle you're in right now?
It's about 2 every year, because of the miles that we're putting on them, you know, roughly 30,000 miles, some higher than that a year, some lower, but, this year I need 3 vehicles, I'm asking for 2, understanding that we think we can get by for another year. That's kinda where it's at. I don't know any other rotation that we can do outside of what we're doing with, we need roughly 2 vehicles every year.
Right. Well, I know we discussed the leasing option. And I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure if that's the direction we should go to.
Yeah, I just don't, you know, with, because we pay for our vehicles out of PILT, you know, it seems to be the question of what's PILT gonna be every year, and then what, you know, it does get used for a lot of things. If it were to ever not come in, and then we would have this payment for a fleet, well, that payment has to be made, and even if our whole fleet was on that payment, you know, we'd be looking at $100,000 a year, and I don't know, you know, that payment's gotta be made, so it'd have to come out of our budget, which would just fill the public safety budget.
I guess that's part of my concern as well, to make that commitment and have all that uncertainty. Now, did you say also that some of the outfitting for these vehicles, you were gonna use some other funds for that?
Yeah, I'll use the 438 Memorial Fund, and that'll be $20,000 of outfitting that has to be done. 11,000 each, so there's 22. I'm gonna go through that bid and see if we can take anything off to get it, you know, down a little bit further, but police equipment is not cheap. The person that upfits our vehicles, we tried switching, what, 3 years ago, vendors, and we have had nothing with it but issues with that patrol car, with the wiring, fuses, grounds, all that stuff frying out, and had to have it redone. And we have no issues with the vendor that we use now. Everything seems to be, works great. We have an issue, they drive here from Livingston, they fix it. And
So we're building up their CIP. Any thoughts on that, you guys?
I'll throw something out on the table for discussion.
Sure.
To what you had brought up, we have the 43A, $50,000 a year. goes to, public safety on top of the $2.1 million budget. So the 20,000 we put into vehicles, that's also the city's paying for half of a vehicle every year, ideally a vehicle every other year. If we were to double that, so this, we're going to a total of 90 grand a year, from PILT, just right off the top, for public safety, for law enforcement. If we did that, then we're essentially able to buy a vehicle and a half every year with the city. That leaves, and I think what we need more than anything is a plan. I don't think we can just throw money. I think we've gotta have a plan. So that gives the sheriff's office the opportunity to add to that if they want the 2 vehicles, and maybe the incentive to introduce a plan or put together a plan. Those would be my suggestions. So I would suggest increasing that to 40,000 and keeping the 43.8 memorial 50,000 intact. So a total of 90,000 from PILT.
That memorial fund is rolled into our budget, that's not on top of the 2.1. I don't think it's quite 2.1, but that's rolled into our budget. And we've been using that, you guys have gotten letters like the body cams, some extra trainings and things like that, so that's rolled into our existing budget, with the email that was provided by you guys to be spent as the sheriff sees fit, which we greatly appreciate that account very much. It's helped us, get some good equipment for the guys and gals over there, and pay for unforeseeable costs throughout the year.
It has been.
Which I will use, sorry Laura to interrupt you, which I was gonna use that to upfit these 2 new patrol cars.
It has been responsibly used overall, I would say. There's also another CIP, and it is weapons and equipment. Forgot about that one. And currently, it looks like it has 9,500, is that correct, Debbie, from the, tax levy requirements report? And it is essentially just wrapped up into the budget, that is true.
Yeah, that's currently what's cash.
Okay. So that's another one that, is pretty strong right now, but we need a plan for continuing that rather than, one day not having enough when it's needed. And on PILT, we've always said is not to help balance budgets. It is above and beyond the budgets themselves, and I think we need to keep that in mind as how we want to keep this, to a point. That's not, you can't always, just keep it for capital, but I think, again, that 43.8 has been used as it was intended for the most part. But the source of the money is PILT.
Brandon, is there any, can you get piggyback with the state as far as purchasing vehicles on order or not? Does that do us any good, or?
That's what we're doing, we go through the same people the state is for the Chevy. The Ford Explorer's changing models again, and they're right at the same price. This new Tahoe that we just got, that we ordered last year, seems to be a really great vehicle. Now has the 4-wheel drive police package, pursuit rated, the same as the Ford Explorer, so that's the same thing we do. We shop around to the state contracts, and that's where the state gets their vehicles. Denny Menholt, out of Billings, I remember, has the state contract for Chevy the last 2 years.
Debbie, on this, do you have the 100,000 that we set aside for the hospital last year for their HV unit, is that included in this?
Not for this year as an expenditure, and it didn't get spent last year.
So but it's still in this reserves?
So yes, it
or
would be,
the- or
because you
the
didn't
cash
spend it,
balance?
yes, it would be in your cash balance.
Okay.
So last year, before, when you anticipated to spend it, but then didn't, it just left it in your cash carrying forward. So that's why at the end of the year, at June 30th, the balance of PILT was $958,000. Because we gotten the payment for the year and some of those unspent monies from the turn lanes, we needed some money on the hospital HVAC. Kept the balance higher than in years past. So that was a good thing. And at the time we were working on this, with all the expenditures, whether you paid directly out of PILT or the transfers to other funds, the amount requested was $590,000. Not knowing what our PILT allocation will be this next year, I erred low, and it's the lowest of 4 years at 628, which theoretically, if you stick to this, the end of the year balance will be 367,000 as your cash to carry forward into the new year.
Okay.
And what we need to remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but anything that's unforeseen
Correct.
or a capital expenditure opportunity that comes up, that's what we use PILT for. And one of the reasons we do have that 367 surplus of 392 is because we don't just spend it all within the year. And I would like to continue that practice. It was one started by our predecessors, and I think it's sound accounting practice. It's not done by every county.
And this does include the veterans and indigent burials that are kind of waiting to be determined. We didn't have as many vet burials this year, so the cash balance is pretty good on those, which ties into the general fund. Indigent, we only have the one, but that one, if you don't spend it, that leaves that much unspent in your balance. The juvenile transport, that was having to pay that on the caveat that when we get reimbursement, it will repay it and it'll go back into PILT. And it's such a week ago that Tam's sent the bill in, so it's just a matter of time for that to come in. We might not even need to do the transfer, it might come in before all this happens. There are little caveats in here also that could decrease what you spend. But these were the requests that came so far this year.
So Brandy, do you have any ideas of how we can start to contribute to a CIP for you guys?
I don't have any ideas other than to, I guess, put more money in than we need this year. Ever since I've been here and before, it seems like the money that goes in is the money we need this year is spent. And it's, so I tried rolling it into our budget this year, and then I was told to take it out and to go to PILT. And, granted, it wasn't a balanced budget with it in there, but that was my attempt, was to somehow get these paid for every year, and so we know we're gonna need them. pretty important part of our budget to keep our deputies in patrol vehicles that are safe and run good and know you're gonna get to the call. And I have no other way in our budget, current budget, to pay for this, or to build the CIP up.
Well, I guess, one way to do it, and it's not a great way to do it, but it's a way to start getting on track this year, and to possibly change your vehicle rotation schedule. You guys have to hold on to these vehicles a little bit longer than what you have been in the past. And I realize you run into other issues, maintenance costs and things go up, stuff like that, but it's just like we do in our own private lives, right? We need something, we kind of save up for it.
And in the past 2 years, we have been doing that. And we have 3 vehicles that we've pulled down a year longer than we normally have. And so, those have been being done already.
Right.
Things are break on them, they're constantly in the shop now, and it's just,
I understand that.
and the issue with the vehicle being in the shop is you're hot seating another car and gonna add miles onto that, so to me, it's you pay for now or you pay for it later, and that's just the way it goes. I've sat and thought the same as you're thinking now, of what can we do different? Can we run more miles on these cars? But it seems when we're hitting 100,000 miles, they're starting to have a lot of issues. Granted, they probably have 200,000 miles of runtime on them if you add that up. They're burning out. The one Durango was still doing okay for extension. The other one had the same miles, it blew the motor. It wasn't even worth fixing after that.
Debbie, you seen anything, if you look at it, that we can help about?
Scrimps. I don't have any ideas. I know the lease option is out there. One vehicle year lease, compromise. I just don't know.
Is that an option, Brandon, doing partial fleet lease?
We can do the fleet option. I mean, they'll, I could walk in and ask for no money this year and get the 3 cars. But we have to have a 5-year commitment plan.
Right.
I can get 3 cars, but then I still need money coming in for these other ones that come up in the rotation.
Right.
But I can get some revenue, to pay for 3 cars this year, and we would ask for 0 from PILT. But the next year, what do you do when you need the 2 more cars, and then the next year after that? That's where I just don't, without something set in stone, I do not wanna get tied up into that. It just,
Well, you're right, and that's where it would take the commitment to have that money there every year. Maybe 50% of the cost of doing business.
Right now, what's the cost of 2 cars?
2 cars is, well, they're $39,000 for the vehicle, and then there's another, $11,000 in upfitting that has to be done, and that's not counting all the equipment that goes in those cars. That's transferring a lot of the equipment from the old cars into these cars. So 39 plus 11 is what I'm looking at this year, and then times that by 2. But what you need to know is that there's the cost of the car, and then there's another $25,000 to $30,000 worth of equipment in each vehicle. It's not cheap, and they have to have those things in there.
You already own most of that $25,000 worth of equipment. How often do you have to update that?
Well, we're getting pretty close to where we're gonna have to start updating our camera systems. There's a lot better systems out there, but we're getting by, they work. We're staying with it. I mean, it's not, but in the next few years, you're probably gonna have to look at updating the system. I've already had complaints from the county attorney that the nighttime vision, it's not night vision, but it switches to where it sees better at night, is not as good as like the Montana Highway Patrol's one before he goes to court. There's a lot of stuff you can't see. I mean, but what we got, and we're gonna stick with it. It's not a terrible system, they are good, but there are way better models out there.
So I know that we're anticipating our allocations, to be a little bit higher than what they have in our past. Would you guys commit to a portion of that going into CIP?
A portion over what we've budgeted for, I'll commit to all of whatever comes in over what we've budgeted for to go into the CIP. That's part of, our plan of that I presented earlier this year of trying to run a year behind.
Right.
So we don't have to sit here and, submit 5 different budgets before it gets okay.
And I actually think we're to a point where we can do that, based on how Debbie worked it this year. So, is something you wanna talk about a little bit later then? After we come in?
That would be fine. Do you want to take that up though to 40 for now?
Well, we need to do. Before you only gets in one vehicle, right?
Yeah.
But it's a start. I would actually move that we increase the public safety vehicle CIP to double to $40,000. Sorry, Ann. It will dry. Tissues everywhere. Thanks.
I'll second. Motion to increase the public safety vehicle CIP to $40,000. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yes. There's a discussion out here. So, I appreciate that, but it doesn't get us to where we need. But I sit in these meetings and I listen to when solid waste had their issue of being 300,000 in the hole. And the last meeting was, we're gonna commit 300,000 of PILT, but that's what was said, pending their loan, and I see now that that's gone. So, when it comes to the sheriff's office, why, we know we have this need, I'm telling you that we absolutely need this, why can't we have a commitment of 80, and then to go from there? I don't know why we don't ever get that commitment, and that'd be my discussion.
Well, I agree, Brandon, I think that we need to make that commitment. And we all know that this isn't a finalized document, but I think that we need to at least make that commitment at this time.
And The other issue that we're running into is to order the 20s, the deadline is coming up in August. Then I have to start looking at the 20, which there's gonna be a whole nother, or 21, a whole nother year gap. And that's what I'm asking for.
So is this 367, does that include, that was giving the 301 to solid waste or not giving the
No.
301? Not
No.
giving the 301.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think we're sitting really pretty good with our, in our PILT request. To go to 80 on this, I think, is the thing to do for right now. It changes it by $60,000, there's already 20,000 in there. So it just changes it by $60,000.
I'm just asking for a plan. Mr. Chairman, I would call for the question.
To double to 40,
Mhm.
we call for the question to double to 40, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion failed. So we have a motion to increase it to 80, to increase it by 60,000 to 80.
Let me ask one question before there. So my second motion was going to be to increase the public safety weapons and equipment by another 10. They have 9,500 right now, so that would start helping to pay for the equipping of the vehicles, approximately $11,000 per vehicle. So if you wanna go to 80, that would be your motion. But I would suggest that we're smarter to put some with equipment, some with CIP, marry it with the city, and ask for a plan for public safety. But that's, just putting that out there so that you guys have that information.
Yeah, and I agree, we need to have a plan, and I think that we can work on that. And go ahead, Brent, I know you had an idea on some other equipment funding, right? Were you gonna use something from the city or something like that?
To equip the vehicles was I was gonna use the 438 memorial account,
Okay.
which I budgeted for
Okay.
that.
There you go.
But my question on the equipment account that Commissioner Obert's referring to my knowledge, that's a firearm CIP, not equipment. And that's why that money has been built up and not been spent. And we've gotten new firearms, we're good, that's set, but I believe that that's only a firearm CIP account, to my knowledge.
Is that true, Debbie?
That's my understanding. The equipment is for any carriers or things that the weapons need to be
Okay.
used with it. That was my understanding. That was set up way before I ever started. That was my understanding.
So Debbie, with the law addressing CIPs, would that not allow any of that money to be used on related equipment in vehicles?
If they generalize them, so there's a little more leniency, then yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
I know they used to be more restrictive.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, we've got a commitment from Brandon to, if there is our evaluations coming in, and he said he'd be willing to put that towards creating this CIP, I think that's a start. I think that's a place to start. And, just seems like it's, we got a place to start someplace, so. I guess that would be my motion. Increase it to 60,000 with the thought that we would be working on this plan in the future.
You said increase to 60 or
No,
by
it-
60?
Increase it by 60,000, so that there's a total of 80,000 in that fund, or in that line item.
I will second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to increase the public safety vehicle CIP to $80,000. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same?
No, and my dissenting comment is, I think it's too high a jump without a plan. I appreciate the commitment.
Thank you.
With that in mind, I do think it's important to continue building the sheriff's weapons and equipment. Perhaps we can come back and revisit that at another time. I don't want to get back to a place where I think we should continue building little by little like we do with the ambulance, or like we do with the airport, rather than getting into, I need everything now. So that would be my thought on that, but I'm fine waiting.
So Brandon, if you're looking at this, replacing these equipment in these cars, when is that gonna, you got 2 years, you got 3 years, you got?
I'd say within probably 3 to 4, we can probably get by. Outside of buying a camera, a radar here and there, which, you know, we purchased a new one last year and a new radar for the vehicle that we were getting, because our plan changed with our detective position to keep that car fully equipped, and then equip this new car, because we use our detective on the road now, making that 3 Forks deputy, basically filling our detective spot. So I mean, I would say probably 4 years we can get by.
Is that car that you have down in the south end, is that gonna be,
This,
less mileage than our other cars, or is it gonna still be the same amount?
it'll probably be the same amount.
Okay. What have we been putting into weapons? Have we been putting anything into that CIP, or is that just?
In a couple of years, back when they had to get all new handguns, some model changing.
We replaced our handguns 2 years ago, and the total cost was to the county, after trading in all of our guns, we had some old firearms in the back, shotguns that we traded in. I think the total bill was like roughly $800-900, and that got all new handguns, because we switched from the 357 SIGs to the 40 calibers to save costs on ammo, and we cut our ammo cost in half doing that. The SIGs are so expensive, so they have new. Our rifles are all good, the shotguns are good. We just purchased 3 different caliber rifles last year, using our budget, not that CIP. And all of our handguns are new, and we even have one spare handgun at the moment for if there's ever an incident and we need to take a gun, we can hand another one out. But I can't foresee, spending a whole, with the condition that our weapons are in and that we're keeping them in, the trade-in values of ever needing that whole amount. I think it's built up to a good amount of money there for firearms. And I guess we need to find out if it can be used on equipment or not. To my knowledge, it's a firearm CIP, that's what it's labeled at, is in Black Mountain.
Yeah, maybe it's fine to stay at 95, and we don't need to worry about building that up slowly. I don't know if you remember, but what was the cost to move to the SIGs? Was that like 2010, 12? It was a big chunk.
We moved to, when I started, we were at the SIG caliber, the 357 caliber. We went from the SIG firearms to the Glocks, which they did the trade-in value on that, and that was, during Brenda's term, I had never seen a budget in my life before that, so I don't know what that looked like. One of the big expenses was the rifles and shotguns, switching from the Mini 14s to the MP 15s that we have now, and then the old Remington 870 models to the Benelli Novas. That was the huge expense, and that's when this, to my understanding, this account started. Because, hey, we need to plan for when this gets out there. I remember hearing that talk when I was a deputy in patrol, and I'm sure it was upwards to probably $8,000. It was a lot, I know that, but
I think it was 5 digits. 12 comes to mind, but don't quote me on that.
it could be more. I mean, we're looking at
Quite a chunk.
MP 15. You're looking at $1,200.
Yeah, and if the plan now looks a lot smarter than that, but that is where memory says we need to keep this as a strong savings account. But yeah, if you guys don't need it, then
I
we'll
would,
sit on the 95 and call that fine.
I was of my impression that all the money that we didn't spend in our firearms line item in our budget, my impression was that was rolling over into that account, and that's all I would request that we do, is just do that. If that's not the case, then that's fine, but,
You don't do that with line item budgeting for that account, okay?
okay.
It's bottom line fund.
Yeah.
So it just rolls into our cash. If you don't spend it, it just stays in our cash.
Well, what happens with the CIPs? They stay in the CIP until you spend it. In the meantime, they earn interest, so when Doug gets interest allocation statements dumped from the bank, he has a spreadsheet that he has to formulate that divvy out the interest to all the CIPs. So as long as you don't spend it, you earn a little interest, whether it be 20, 30, 40, or 1,000, depending on the balance in your CIP. So it just sits there, so if you don't spend it, it sits there.
I have no request to put any more money in there at this time. If we switched all of our firearms right now, I think that with shopping around and doing the trade-in option, I don't even foresee we would spend all that.
In the last 4 years, there hasn't been anything spent out of there since 15, 16. 17, 18, there was revenue donations received, and then you spent some. That's been it in the last 4 years. It wasn't prior to the 15, 16 fiscal year.
this 628 PILT funding, is that, did you figure that was low?
That's below, if we look at the last 4-year average revenues, and in 15-16, that's what we got. We budgeted that for this year because we didn't know. And we got more, but each of the 2 years after that, it went up a little bit. Like, if you know you can make it work with 628, hopefully it's not gonna go lower than that.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to anticipate what White House will do
Yeah.
and how they'll calculate these formulas and change things again. Because it's so complicated that I don't know how anybody does it. So it could be more, like this year. We got a little more than we thought we were gonna get, so that was a good thing. Especially moving forward.
What else do we have? Anything else?
You guys got the tax levy requirement sheet. Kind of take a look at that. There have been some more changes since this was done. Got some more values to fill in. The columns we want to worry about are the negatives. So we'll have to look at those and keep our eye on those. Did they guess about revenues, too much expenditures? Do not have like a fourth quarter payment. So those are some of those things I will be looking at in more detail as time goes. The other thing, those that are milled accounts, if they're over 33%, which is that far right column, those can be reduced by a transfer out to their CIPs. Once we verify all the numbers are correct, all their revenues are right, their expenditures are correct, and any last little bit of claims that Michelle still works on for fiscal year. So 18-19. She's got some stragglers that she's still working on that came in Friday. So those will just be the ones that we look at and make sure. We got a snapshot of where we're sitting with our current, based on last year's revenues. It's better than in some of the years past. At this point in time.
Where does our money in the senior citizens transport, where does that go to?
That goes to part of Rocky Mountain Development for transportation.
So if we transfer that out, where does it transfer?
They actually have a CIP account for the senior center.
Oh, and that's enrolled with the senior center? Okay.
For the senior center. They wanted the Meals on Wheels separate from the dinner club.
Oh, okay, okay.
This is a reporting, tracking issue for them. And this includes the increase, the information I just got Friday,
Okay.
where they increased that 2.4%. That's included in their expenses. So they're doing pretty good. And having that little extra in their CIP will help pay for any major stoves, dishwashers, refrigerators, in case the bathroom plumbing fails or some other major catastrophe. So that's a bonus for them.
will we have numbers Friday, we won't have numbers till Monday?
Well, they say each time after the first, so if it's the first Monday after the first, it'll be Monday before we get them. However, let me see, that should be that. I anticipate Monday the 5th. Last year they were early. Just means we start the clock sooner.
So if they're early, then the clock starts ticking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right after that, I'd lose a couple days.
Like
Because
last
it's,
year.
yeah. I'm not going to take the best of it.
Do you have anything else then?
What's the budget stuff?
Okay. So we go to our 11:30 then, or yes, Tim?
Just real quick clarification, Mr. Chairman, Tim Ravendall, Redoubt News. I'm looking at one sheet here with the budget fiscal draft for this, and it's showing the solid waste is at that $301,000 deficit, and yet it's still pending on the TBD on BOI loan. Would you clarify the acronyms and where that's at?
Board of Investment, what's the other one?
TBD to be determined.
To be determined, the Board of Investments is a BOI.
And so that funding is there any figures on that loan amount at this point in time?
I believe she's working on the application right now, I don't know what the amount is.
Okay, I'm just wondering if it's for the 300,000 to bail that out, or if it's because there's also budget discussions that were earlier about purchasing some equipment for the road department under Public Works, and I'm just not trying to make sure that we get this straightened in where that's all coming from and where it's going.
Solid waste the solid waste fund doesn't have anything to do with the road department.
Gotcha.
Solid waste is an enterprise fund.
And one more clarification, I do understand there's a separation, but it's, anyway, coming from the Public Works, right? Okay. The other clarification is just on this sheet that I have here, which shows the breakdown of the different funds. The solid waste is under an enterprise fund, but yet it shows here under solid waste that there is, get the right page here, excuse me. I seen it here a few minutes ago. I'll ask after later, just for clarification. That way I don't hold you up. Thank you. My apologies for not having that question in order.
Anything else, Debbie? Okay, so we can go on to our 11:30. Do you know if there's Aaron coming?
No.
No? So do we have?
The ones that you sent last week, they're the current ones, have the date changes on them, 2021
Well,
or?
the participation agreements that I brought are current and accurate. The bargaining agreement for public safety is not. It's still all in the red. Laura sent me. She thought she had it, Mike thought he had it. They both have the same thing with the red. So Laura sent an email from Aaron saying we need the final right away.
Okay.
Road department is final. That draft that she sent is final.
So we could approve road and then get the sheriff's office ASAP.
Here's the original contract, and then the separate participation agreements for bargaining and non-bargaining employees.
So when we come back to the public safety, that'll be just the public safety?
Yes.
The health is already included in this one, right? With the same
Yep.
terms?
Yep, same terms. They're almost identical. We each have our own special things as far as health insurance, cost of living increases, bargaining, participation and non-bargaining agreements are identical.
So it was the only thing that needed to be corrected was the dates.
So the issue, and you were gone last week, but the issue that I asked about was on the health insurance agreement. The date shows June 30th, 2018, sorry, July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2022, which appears to include the dates of both the sheriff's office as well as the road department's agreement. Because the sheriff's office agreement ends a year before that, but the road one goes through 2022.
And I fixed the one for the sheriff.
Okay, so that was the question. I talked to Erin Foley last Wednesday on that issue. She wasn't sure, and I thought she was gonna connect with you. Do you know, has she since last Wednesday? Okay, so the only issue was whether there was a date discrepancy on the document.
And I did change the date down, because I think that was my misunderstanding after all this, because I did miss some of the negotiations
Okay,
on the end date, so I fixed
Okay.
that.
So
And the
we're-
sheriff.
so okay, so the road one, as long as it goes through June 30th, 2022, then that would agree with the CBA, and I didn't have any other concerns.
So the road department goes to June of 2021.
What's the fund of bargaining agreement? That one I didn't.
This one here says June of 2022.
So then the participation agreement should be 2022 at the top.
For the road one?
The road one.
So this date is 2022.
Correct. We've been working on them so long, I got the dates.
I know you got the other ones changed.
I've been working on the road
So-
one at
so-
the same amount of time, so that's how they were negotiating some of that, I missed out and didn't.
So both of these, this collective bargaining agreement, this one has 22 on it.
So I need to change the date on the
These other two
participation
both have
agreement to
21 on it.
22.
So we
Should have
wanna
left it
change-
on that one.
So we wanna change those before we sign them.
It's just on the front page, I believe, the date's wrong. I don't think
This
it's on
one
the
here
signature,
is on the second page.
but I need to fix them all.
Okay. So do we wanna go ahead and sign the collective bargaining agreement then, and then just get these two corrected?
I would ask to do them all at once. I don't mind waiting. Could you fix those and bring them back? Would that be all right with you, Mike?
That'd be all right, yeah.
So all the road dates then are gonna say through June 30th, 2022, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you mind checking to see if there's any more from Aaron too? Thanks.
Since Mary, since you're here, we'll go ahead with yours.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the first item that I want to talk about this morning is the approval to proceed with an intercap loan. I'd like to look at the Board of Investment intercap loan for the enterprise debt. So as you know, last June 30th, 2018, there was $170,000 debt for the solid waste department. This year, I've given you the cash report as of the end of June of this year, and I believe all the claims are in for June, so we're looking at a negative $315,000. That includes the $170,000 debt that we had the end of last fiscal, of the 2018 fiscal year, along with the changes, improvements to canister sites and solid waste, as well as equipment repairs that we did not anticipate. So, one thing that the Board of Investments loan program does is they do allow a loan for an enterprise debt. And those debt loans have a maximum term of 15 years.
So what we're looking at there is a loan payment of approximately a little less than $22,000 a year for that, for 15 years. And what I will need, so I'm working on the loan application right now. I have some questions for Louise there. She's out until tomorrow. I did talk to her assistant this morning, and she couldn't answer the questions that I had. So I will talk to Louise tomorrow. Once I get that done, Debbie Kelly is helping me fill out portions of the loan application, showing our revenue and our debt for the last 3 fiscal years. And then there's some additional information that I need to get to them, as in the resolution that we have for the fee increase and our projected revenue budget. Once I get that done, I will be approaching you to get your approval on a resolution approving that loan. And I'll have to speak to Corey and get a document from him as well. So as you can see, I would like to do that. I think that that's the best way to resolve the enterprise debt rather than trying to use PILT money. I don't want to have to use PILT money if we don't have to. And I think that I can get this going before your final budget approval is made 30 days after valuations are in. So, just to let you know where I am in that process.
Mary, never mind. Never mind.
Okay,
Thanks.
all right, you got. The next item I have for you, it's just some, sorry, some notes on that for me.
Thank
So, you know, late spring, we turned over a dump truck, hauling some gravel, and Mako claims determined that the repairs on that truck were more than what the truck was worth. So what we did is we, as part of the claim, we just settled the claim and took the cash value of what that truck was worth, and I had that put into our road CIP for now.
What was the payout on that?
It was $20,000. So right now I have $20,000 in the CIP for a dump truck replacement. I have had TJ looking at dump trucks in the area, what's available there. We've looked at a few. We found one over in Billings. It's a 2007 Sterling. It has 259,500 miles on it. It has a CAT engine. As you know, we have a Sterling, and this was built as a dump truck. It wasn't something that was converted. It wasn't a semi that was converted to a dump truck. It was built as a dump truck. We have a Sterling up at Solid Waste, have had really no major issues with it. This does have a CAT engine. I think that's something that the road department would prefer. And their request is to go ahead and make this purchase. I have looked at my budget for roads, and I would need the $20,000 out of the CIP for that, along with another $23,000. So the company that's selling this told us that they would give it to us for $43,000.
Nice.
And we're in a position now that we're looking at hauling some gravel on some of these roads that we're doing maintenance on right now. And we could use the additional dump truck. So my request today for you is to approve the expenditure from the road budget for the purchase of this truck.
I would move to grant you that authority, Mary. This is a good plan. You have a strong CIP, strong budget.
You haven't looked at this truck yet?
I have not. TJ actually did go over to Billings and look at it. He drove it, used the dump box on it, said that it's in good shape.
Let's see, how many yard boxes that, did it say? I'm just guessing, looking at it, probably close to 12.
Yeah, that's what I would say, probably 12 yard box. Tire size is normally what we use on it. So this would be the newest.
Is there a second for the motion?
So I guess I just wanna make sure you got 20 from insurance. You got another 20 in your CIP,
33? Yes.
oh, right now.
Oh, yes, I have 20 in the CIP. The insurance money went into the CIP directly. Yes.
And where's the balance coming from?
I have, so I ran a cash report this morning. My cash balance, ending balance for roads was 185. So I do have money in my budget for that. And I will make some adjustments, I'll have to make some adjustments in expenditures for my expenditure budget to move things around. I don't recall if I put that in there or not, this expenditure in there. Honestly, I don't remember. But I do have it, the CIP is strong, for roads.
What's this lift gate? This is a different style lift gate on the back. Were they using it for paving or something? Do you know? I'm just curious.
I don't know. This truck came out of Wyoming, and it was a one owner.
Did you have any other commitments for your CIP?
You know, perhaps, I was looking at building a shop for the graders this year. I'd like to get those graders under cover this year. Have a couple of options with that. Looking at a pole barn, just getting a pole barn up with doors, doing probably 5 large bays that the graders would fit in, and have some additional bays for other equipment, mosquito and weeds, in addition to some of the other road equipment that we have. Thinking kind of in advance of something like that, with the building not being concerned about, at least at this point in time, water. I would like electricity in there, but I think that would be somewhat inexpensive compared to a brand new installation, because we do have a pole there that we can put it in. So the distance wouldn't be so great if I put a shop. I'm looking at putting a shop on the north end of the yard there for equipment.
Did we still have some stuff to clean up from Deep Creek? Was committed for that? Or not?
No, I did get an email from Amber this morning, but I haven't opened it yet, Joe.
Okay.
I know that we were out there with that. I would have to talk to Debbie as to where that came from, because we wanted it to come out of the FY19 budget and not this upcoming FY20.
Right.
So I can check with her and see where we are with that. She's been the one dealing with Amber on some of those final numbers.
You're down the truck, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I will second that motion.
Motion been made and seconded to allow Mary to purchase the 2007 Sterling from Billings Truck Shop of Billings. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Motion carries.
All right, and then the last item I have for you, we did talk about this a couple of months ago. We'll be getting a truckload of culvert material, because of the cost savings that we can realize, by buying it in volume. And then thinking, trying to have some foresight in terms of dealing with these unpermitted approaches that we have in the county. So I contacted Core and Main, they're who I contacted first, and, to get a price on culvert. What you're gonna see there is mainly 18-inch culvert. But then I looked at, a few other culvert items. We need some 48-inch culvert to, do some work down on Lightning Barn. The 36 and the 24-inch culvert is for installation down in the Crooked Valley on Lone Mountain, 437, Money Lane, Hosfeld Lane, and what am I forgetting? Muddy, Hosfeld, Lone Mountain, 437.
Will you do anything unfair with this?
It'll be potentially the intersection of Farrett and, yeah. So those costs are significant for the larger culvert there.
So that's where a majority of the 36 and 24 is
Yes,
going?
yes. So, you know, as you may recall, I did submit a grant application to FEMA for hazard mitigation. It was approved by Montana. They sent it to the national headquarters. But it's not within the scope of that particular grant they were looking at. We're gonna resubmit that this fall and hope to get funding for that. It was over $1 million to do the work down in that area. What I wanna do is I wanna get this culvert installed, increase the elevations where we can, and to mitigate some of the issues that we've had the last several years down there. If we can, you know, prevent additional damage to the road there, the roads in those areas, that would be awesome. Mitigate those damages to the landowners. The larger culverts that we're looking at in that proposal are concrete box culverts. And those are really expensive. I would just as soon get some assistance funding those.
I know that'll take care of a lot of the areas
Yes,
anyway.
yes, it will.
Is the plan with some of the smaller culverts, that would help some of these people with
Yes.
driveway issues that we're
Yes.
having, right?
Exactly, and they can buy the culvert from us at our price.
At a cost?
Yes,
Okay. So we can save them some money.
yes.
Where are these 60-inch ones going?
Down on Lightning Barn at, so you're down, I can't pronounce his name.
Spatzer.
Yeah, Spatzrat,
Okay.
down there. Yeah, we need to replace, I think we have a 3-foot culvert there right now. We need to replace that. The larger culvert.
Kind of unrelated, just it jogged my memory, which is part of our lightning barn, where we're gonna go across the road from the,
Yes,
do we decide not to use culvert, right? We're gonna use
correct.
the engineered
Yes,
dip, I guess, for
yes,
a better
yeah,
word.
we are. Yeah,
A
they call
little
it,
more
they
technical
call
name.
it Kelly hump.
There you go.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. How are we doing with that? Is that moving
Sean
forward?
has been working with Corey on that.
Okay.
Hasn't gotten back to me yet on that, but we should be able to get that work done this fall,
Okay.
yes. And we
So-
need to get it done this fall.
We do. Just so so we're ready for next spring.
Yes. Exactly, yeah.
So Mary, I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
Uh,
Go ahead, no,
Either one.
no, no.
I was just gonna say these culverts and your plan with it, as well as the dump truck, both will allow your department to do more for people who hear a lot
Yes.
on roads. I see both as an investment in the citizens, so, I probably should have waited, but I'm ready to make a motion unless you want me to wait.
Yeah, no, I guess my only question, are we seeing more and more people that are following the policy of getting
Yes,
approach approval?
I have been in the last couple of months,
Okay,
yes.
good.
I have more than I had last year.
Go ahead.
Do you wanna make this motion since I made the last one?
Sure, I'll move that we approve the culvert purchase.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the Core Main bid proposal for culverts, a total of $50,160.99 in the appropriate discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Did you get the email I forwarded this morning about the Barca?
Yes, I did,
Okay.
I did. Would you like me to present that next?
Yeah. Be the 12th.
Yes. Okay, I'll be sure that I'm on the agenda for that. All right, thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Mary.
Do you have a question, Tim? Just
Just a sec, Mary. I found the question I was trying to get clarification on a little bit earlier. On the 5410 fund, it shows across the line, and I know this is a working document, it's not final, but what it shows here that we have before us this morning is a $301,646,000 deficit in that fund, along with, it shows two different sources of revenue. One is the $946,852, which is under what we understand is the enterprise fund, which is not a tax, which has been stated in the middle. And then the next one over is property tax revenues, which is $2,800. So that's the clarification I'm trying to get straight, so we know where this revenue is coming from. The 940 or 940,000, I'm guessing is coming from the enterprise fund that's charged to each property owner. The other part of it is $2,800, which I have no idea what, because it's listed under a property tax revenue.
Okay, I don't know what report you're looking at. I can.
Draft, again, don't get me wrong, this is draft. I'm just trying to get clarification on where that's at. And then what is the actual current approved figure on the IBD or BR5? I can't remember acronym, sorry.
You'll have to ask Debbie, because I have no idea. Honestly, I don't know. My cash balance, so we added in, so the cash balance that I gave the commissioners this morning is a report I printed out this morning.
And we
I'm
haven't
not
seen
sure.
that.
I'm not sure on this, Tim. You'll have to ask Debbie how that's figured. I'm not an accountant.
Well,
So-
just going by with what is there, trying to
Yeah.
get clarification, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
So what is the current IBD loan that was going after, the amount?
What I have right now for my cash balance is minus 315,687.49.
Thank you.
You bet.
And that's BOI, I apologize for acronyms.
next on here is the task order between the Department of Health, Human Services, and Broadway County Public Health for public health emergency preparedness.
This is boilerplate, we do it every couple of years, it's on the agenda because this is not the revolving annual one. This is a really good grant from the state, and so I move that we approve it.
Motion made and seconded to approve the task order for the Department of Public Health and Human Services. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I think Teresa's kind of the one that heads that up, right?
It is public health. Much of what she does, it's the FEP. When she talks about FEP, that's what this one is.
And here we have another one here. This is the task order that covers the period from July 1st, 2019 to July 30th, 2026. Office of Public Health Systems Improvement. This is a task order for a grant for $10,000.
I think that was one that Teresa just recently put in for, received. Is that right? That's what you talked about at our,
I think so.
Is
department
this
head
for the respite care? Or is that a different one she talked about?
This is a different one.
This is a different one?
Yeah.
If it's for multiple years, we should put it on the agenda as well. If it's after we
This
do,
one just goes from September 1st through August 31st of 2020.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought it said 26. Yeah, then what we do is that, like this other one, a big overarching multi-year contract, and then every year it's just a renewal.
Yeah.
That's what this is. I would move that we sign it.
Is there a second?
Yeah, sorry, I remember reading it this morning.
Motion been made and approved the factory contract between Delaware County and the Department of Public Health and Human Services. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Did you get those pages? Did you sign?
Oh, you got, okay, so let's go ahead with those.
Did you get anything from Erin?
No.
Shoot.
So these are the, this is the collective bargaining agreement between Broadway County and Teamsters Local Union 2, the agreement for participation of non-bargaining unit employees, participation agreement for the road department. Motion to approve and sign.
I would move that we approve the CBA for the road department.
No, second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the CBA for the road department. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Thank you.
the Montana Teamsters Contractors Employees Trust Participation Agreement for the road department.
I'll move that we assign the petition, case and agreement for the department.
I'll second.
Motion been made, second to the consent agreement, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. The last one is the Montana Teamsters Contract Employees Trust Agreement for participation of non-bargaining unit employees.
I'll move we sign that one as well.
A second.
Motion been made and second to approve the agreement of participation of non-bargaining unit employees, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is that particular one, the one where it talks about insurance policy that goes through for non-union employees?
It's all non-bargaining unit employees who meet the eligibility requirements must be reported unless, yeah, so it's non-union element for all the employees, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see, we can move on to the
Thanks,
12:45.
Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie. Interdisciplinary team setup letters, Corey. Explain what we got going on.
So, this is a short discussion, in fact, Brandon might wanna come up and he can tell more about it as well. So, in statute, and most counties have this, I'm not sure, I mean, there's probably a county out there, one or two that doesn't, but there is an entity called an Interdisciplinary School Safety Team. And, I came in, I mean, it was operating long before I got here, so I kind of fell in on it. And generally what we do is we meet once a month with officials from the school district, counselors, the juvenile probation, the child protective services with Department of Health and Human Services. Some counseling and a service that we use out of Helena called Aware Inc., and they do a lot of our, they do interviews for children that are involved in either a victim or a witness of a crime, called a child forensic interview. And then myself, the victim advocate, Dolan, and then law enforcement officers. And generally what we do is we just, as a team, work on either identifying, if there's something that comes up where there's a kid that's showing some kind of at-risk behaviors, and sometimes, you know, when a counselor's talking to them, that ends up resulting in kind of a disclosure of a crime, something that's happened to them. And so we basically, as a team, just work on managing, kind of how to respond. There are many things out of that that do end up being, maybe it leads to a criminal case. There are things that come out of that that lead to maybe a child protective services getting involved with a local family. There are some things that lead to additional counseling services, and there's some that just kind of lead to kind of behavior management of how they're dealt with in school. Ordinarily, you get a kid that's really sticking out in school. Usually there's something going on at home. That's kind of cool. So this is a team that meets monthly. It's been fairly informal. This legislative session, a bill was passed which just modified the statute a little bit. It did a couple things. First of all, it put it as a duty of the county commissioners to ensure that such a team exists. I suspect that happened because there was probably some county somewhere that didn't have one, and maybe a problem was discovered, and they said, oh, well, geez, if we had this team in place, maybe we would have discovered this year ago. I don't really know. It came up out of the blue. I spent a fair amount of time with Mako on the issue during the legislative session and other county attorneys, and nowhere in any county is our county commissioner a member of the team. And the language doesn't really say that, but it does say it is a duty to the county commissioners to ensure that such a team is formed. And then it did formalize a little bit more in terms of the actual documentation that needs to be done. So I've been working with some other county attorneys and the Attorney General's office, and I thought Mako had kicked around a draft resolution. I've heard about it, I've never actually seen it. So my goal is to get that thing and to present to you a resolution just formalizing and announcing the formation of it, even though it's existed for long before I came. And then secondly, it does have some more formalized agreement documents that need to happen between the school personnel, the child protective services personnel, juvenile probation, our law enforcement, and my office. So there might be some other entity involved. So I think what we'll end up doing is some kind of a interlocal agreement or something that we have everyone sign. That'll also include a non-disclosure agreement. Now, we have in the past done non-disclosure agreements. We usually do one a year where everyone that's attending signs it. And because it's confidential information unless it leads specifically to something that might be disclosed in court as part of a case. So that's the short version of it. Brandon, do you want to add anything to that?
No, it is a very good group that gets together and, keeps everybody in the loop on what's going on, and communication's great. I don't really have anything else to add on.
And so really, the function of it is just information sharing, because there's times when, say, I'm working on, maybe Brandon's office is working on an investigation, I'm aware of it, but nobody else is aware of it because we haven't told them, right? And then something will come out of that where there's some reported behavior or an admission or a disclosure at school of so-and-so is doing something to me. And we go, well, we need to know that because it affects what we're doing, and so then that allows us to set up interviews, et cetera. So it's basically become an information sharing process. But coming out of that, there's all kinds of outcomes. There's no action other than keep trying to help this kid. Sometimes there's been some donations to families that have come out of it for clothing or food. I think there was once a donation to pay someone's heating bill. So there's some things that can come out of it that aren't a case, but they are kind of some positive stuff. But I've had several criminal cases that have come out of, I guess the discussions were contemporaneous with other things that were going on, so. That's a short version of it.
Sure, has the superintendent of schools always been a part of this team?
Yeah, well, the district superintendent, this is the first time I've seen where the county, where Doug's office would be a part of it. So I think I'm gonna leave that up to him and Mr. Wilkerson to work that out.
Okay.
But, so Eric Wilkerson is a part of all of them. So like I said, I suspect what happened is, in statute it says there is such an entity and these people may do it. There wasn't a thing that said you shall establish one, and I think that's what happened. Okay? So I'll get documents to you as soon as I can on formation, et cetera. We probably won't have it formally, as far as the agreement among everybody, signed until the school year starts again.
See, there's a deadline though, right?
There's a deadline for yours, I don't know what the deadline is. Actually, I think I sent you the statute, but
So are all these activities in this solely negotiated or initiated through the school, or can they come through law enforcement and your office?
everyone that's part of it can bring stuff in. We've had stuff from a social worker that comes in that the school didn't know about. Or the school folks tell us something that nobody else knew about, or sometimes we have a report, and so we say, hey, what's going on with this kid? And they're like, oh, man, all kinds of stuff. You know, but we raised it because we knew about it from an investigative point of view. So that's the whole point, is anyone that's participating can raise an issue, and everyone else can handle it.
And I see that, where you sent the letters out already? There.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, where did I see, I thought I seen letters go out to,
The draft was sent to you
yeah,
and to Mike,
okay,
so that you guys could offer edits.
okay,
And that we could go ahead and sign them today so that we can send them off as is in our Mako instructions.
right,
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's what that is.
okay.
And the letters are for all the people in point number 2.
Yep.
Directions.
Mhm.
So, no, they were sent to you guys for edits. and
Okay,
to-
okay, that's cool, okay.
Okay, so I sent an email to all of you last week with the statute and asking that I could see what these draft letters were, because I'd heard they were out there, I've not seen them or read them, so.
But we still don't have the draft resolution from NACO?
No, from Corey.
Well,
We do need that, but we need to do this first, because if you look on timeline,
Right.
and number 3,
Mhm.
it tells us what, and we have resolutions already from starting other boards. But if you look at the instructions for these 2, it tells us what needs to be in the resolution.
Okay.
So as soon as we get that, then we advertise for 2 weeks and then we adopt it officially. But we have to have all these folks on board first,
Okay.
or at least responding, or giving them an opportunity to respond.
So I guess it would've been helpful if I'd gotten, that was what I was asking for, I heard there was something floating around, I haven't seen it, so
Okay.
could I get copies of those?
Oh, absolutely. Didn't you bring some, Mike? Is that what's on the table there?
No, that's the, Iron Mass letter.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see, I didn't think they make a copy of
I
that.
guess I misunderstood you, Corey, I was looking for a resolution.
Okay,
But
That's what-
but
yeah,
there
that's what-
is-
that's what I
you can
thought.
look at this.
so what does Mako say?
Um,
What's the deadline that they're
copy
working
of
on?
it.
I have my notes on it.
That's the letter that they want to send to everybody.
And that's the letter that's here.
Yeah.
You can read it if you want,
So we
Mike.
need,
Yeah.
Dear Val, this is the letter to Val, all of these people. The implementation of Senate Bill 35 from the 2019 legislative session requires the Board of County Commissioners of each county to ensure the formation of a county or regional interdisciplinary child information and school safety team. Your agency or organization is one of the several statutory named entities that may be authorized to a designee for forming the team by the commission. If your agency would like representation on the interdisciplinary team, please submit the name of your authorized representative immediately. The commission will appoint the team utilizing the name submitted by your agency and the name submitted by the other eligible entries. So is there, we need a motion to sign all these letters?
I think so. I think it's not a bad move to have that on the record. Even though it's legally required. And since I wrote them, I would like to see maybe a little motion by you, Daryl, to sign those.
You see that?
Huh?
That letter looks.
Oh, it's fine, I'm a little frustrated, I mean, I thought I'd reached out to you guys on this is actually ongoing, we have all these entities that you have on here are involved except for the county superintendent of schools. If that's considered Doug, he's not involved, Eric Wilkerson is, so I'm not sure what that is, but. Alright. A little frustrating, this is what I asked, I thought I was asking for when I sent that request, saying, I heard Mako's produced something, can I get it so we can get things moving?
I was thinking resolution, I was thinking some kind of formal
I got you.
document, that's what I was looking for, so I'm
Alright.
sorry. Yeah, I will, make a motion that we, sign and send those letters out to the appropriate people.
And I'll second. Motion been made and second to approve letters to the County Interdisciplinary Child Information and School Safety Team. All in favor?
A little discussion before we move on. I was gonna, second and offer a friendly amendment, but I'll offer it at this point. I would suggest that we change county superintendent of schools to the county superintendent, school superintendent, and that would be Eric.
Sure.
You guys good with that?
Yeah.
And so then that letter, we can go ahead and sign this afternoon, or as soon as we get back. Should be easy enough to just change the address and the addressee.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same. Motion carries. So do we still send the one to Doug then, or?
What do you guys think? Do you wanna send it to Doug as a informational? I did talk to him a little bit about it.
I don't think he should really, he's really interested in doing it, is he?
He did not say he was interested. I would imagine that the reason it's here under county superintendent of schools is for those counties that have more than one. So we just have one school district, so we have a school superintendent. So that was probably thinking more of the big counties rather than us little counties. So, I don't have any problem with just sending it to Eric. You guys are good with that?
Eric Wilkerson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's,
Okay. Thank you.
Move on to our 1245 Iron Mass support letter.
One question I have, one of you guys, mail and scan those, my printer's down until I get one in. All right. Thanks, sorry. So the iron mask, this came from the ERC, the Elkhorn Restoration Committee, which works with the Elkhorn's working group. This was done a couple years ago and we offered comment then. It came back through the process that there were, and you can see it in the second paragraph of the letter, deficiencies, cumulative impact deficiencies that were identified by the court in the 2015 environmental analysis of iron mass property. So what this is just that we support that, and we support their putting some work into correcting those deficiencies. If we want to have standing, should something happen down the road, we have to have comment in, and so that's what this letter is. Iron Mask is in Broadwater County, it's a piece of our history, it's recreated, it's, enjoyed by a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And that study has been in our office, since it was done, so a good couple of years now. Any thoughts?
Are they just, they were ordered to review it further, is that what it was?
Yeah, and I couldn't tell you what date. It might have been the June 27th, or that's when the comment period opened. But anyway, yeah, it's from the 2015 proposal that they put in, and then somewhere along the line, the court said you need to address these deficiencies. So that's what they've been doing. Public comment is up, I believe, next week. So this gives us a chance to make sure that we have comment on file, just so that if something happens, Broadwater County has standing.
Is there a motion to approve the letter? I'm gonna read the letter.
You want me to? This is addressed to Scott Haight at Bureau of Land Management. Dear Scott, Broadwater County Board of County Commissioners appreciate the opportunity to comment on the Supplemental Environmental Assessment, SEA, dated June 27, 2019. As the Iron Mask property in Broadwater County is important to telling the story of our history, is the wintering grounds for elk and bighorn sheep in the area, which are making a comeback. Therefore, we support the work you've done to address the cumulative impact deficiencies that were identified by the court in their 2015 environmental assessment of the Iron Mask property. Thank you again. We appreciate the relationship we've built over the years. Sincerely, Broadwater County.
Yes, Tim?
Quick question, mentioned next week. Do you have a date of final opportunity for the public to comment on this supplemental EAA?
I don't know that for sure.
No, I don't.
We commented on the first round. This is just the second.
Is it supposed to be Iron Mask?
No, I decided to change the iron mark. So, I can make that change if you
Okay.
like. And with that change, perhaps we can go ahead and vote to sign it and sign it after we make the change.
There's a motion to approve the letter.
I'll second the motion.
Motion been made and second to approve the letter to the Department of Interior for the Iron Mask 9. All in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
And then if one of you could also send and scan that again till I get a printer.
See, is there anything else? Yes, Tim?
Just a quick, I'm gonna say point of order, Mr. Chair. The agenda pretty closely delineates the opportunity for the citizens to participate in what's going on here. And for example, the discussion on the interdisciplinary team was scheduled at 12:45. We're now at 10 after 12. If there are citizens in Broadwater County that wanted to participate in some of these things that are laid out in agenda, and the agenda is not followed, it makes it very difficult for the citizens to participate as constitutionally provided for. It's been raised many times in this meeting, and Readout News is trying to help get the people informed so that they can be participating in the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess one thing we could go ahead with is the Commissioner's update. I attended the Weed Board, Solid Waste Board, and the Townsend Health Systems Board. The Townsend Health Systems met with St. Peter's Health, Billings Clinic, and Sanford Health. We're still waiting for a last letter to come in from Sanford. Hopefully that'll come in today. And I believe they are going to try to make a decision this week on who they're going to go with. At least a temporary, what were they calling it? Letter of intent, it's not, what's the next,
LOI, so letter of interest.
what's the next step? a commitment to go with whoever they're gonna make a choice to go with as far as the remanagement of the hospital. Hopefully that's gonna get made this week. I think they were thinking Wednesday. That's all I got.
Yes, I attended some of the same meetings. The other one I attended was down in the south end of the county in regards to establishing the boundary for the TED district that's being proposed down there. Met with all the landowners that were involved in that district, and that's something that needs to be defined and sent to the Department of Revenue.
I attended the same meetings except the Elkhorn Restoration Committee. So Heather DeGeest, working with Bill Avey and Arlington Mike, they put together a plan that's kind of exciting. We're the only ones in the state doing it. What we're gonna be doing is combining the Helena and Townsend National Forest into one entity. You guys know from the Forested Counties Coalition that there are a number of collaboratives throughout the state. Well, this will be the biggest collaborative. We are a member with our neighboring counties and a bunch of groups. So what we're doing right now is putting together what this new collaborative is going to look like, who the partners are, what the name of it's going to be, our mission, and that application, I believe, is due very quickly, middle of August. So it's pretty exciting. There's the issue with, a single stamp on the envelope that stops a whole project. These collaboratives have become the entity that actually is spurring a lot of these projects forward. Johnny Crow is a great example. So that's what we're working on. It's pretty exciting, and I'll continue to keep you updated.
Yes, Tim?
One more point, Mr. Chairman. I understand, I was out of town, so I wasn't here, but Thursday night, I'm not sure which one of the advisory board meetings were here at the courthouse Thursday night at 7. But there was several citizens that made contact through either a social media or phone calls that said that they were outside the courthouse here at the 7 o'clock hour when that was supposed to start. But the doors, of course, were locked and there was no signs on the front door, and they didn't know to go around the back to get in to the building for that meeting. So I guess maybe just for interest of helping people know what the process is, there should be a note on one of the front doors on how to access these meetings if the front doors are locked.
Okay. Normally, night meetings are almost always accessed through the back doors.
Well, some people haven't been to the meeting, so they did not know that, and it's not been advertised on the front door as far as, that's for those folks that don't know that.
Okay.
So I came in Thursday night for something else, and the front door on this side was unlocked, and I was surprised it was unlocked. And then I went and I could hear people meeting somewhere in the building, so I figured they were there for a meeting. So I know the front door on this side was unlocked because I was surprised to find it unlocked that evening.
Was the front door on the other end, or the middle door here?
Not the middle door, not the one that's right for the steps, it's the
ones on the
west
other end.
end
Oh,
by
okay.
Doc Campbell's office.
Okay.
Again, I wasn't here, so I don't know if that door was, okay. Just thought I'd bring that up, a note on the door helps.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I may be out of order, and maybe that's what this is all about, but I got a headline here, and I too have been out of town, but when I see something like this, the commissioners continue to delay special counsel having to do with the misconduct of certain claims or individuals on the commission. I see harmony, but I'm wondering, am I out of order to ask why would there be a delay when somebody brings to the attention of maybe a misconduct claim?
Well, we were just trying to make sure everything was done legally. And we were trying to get some information from Mako that they were tied up in meetings and we couldn't get it done.
Are you gonna make a public announcement as to what you're gonna do about it? And
No,
why
that-
why a notice was taken off?
I'll leave that to Corey, I'm not gonna get involved with it. He received the email from the Attorney General, or from Mr. Lambert, right?
And you're not gonna get involved?
Well, I'm not gonna comment on it, cause I don't know what I can and can't comment on.
No, that's a pretty significant headline. Doesn't make us look too good, and as a citizen, that's kind of embarrassing.
Well, in my opinion, I think the Attorney General should have handled it months ago, but they chose not to.
The Attorney General, who, Fox?
I don't know, somebody in his office.
So you're putting the blame on somebody else?
I'm just, all I know is, I don't know what the deal is, I don't know why it wasn't handled through the Attorney General, I don't know why we need to stick our county attorney in the middle of that when he has to recuse himself from it, because he's our representative. So I don't know why the Attorney General didn't handle it when they got it.
Well, my goodness, if I were a commissioner and I had my name on the front cover, I'd, I don't know. I don't do business that way.
Well, I don't really like dealing with lawyers very much, so I don't do business with lawyers either.
All right, end of conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, we will adjourn at 12:16.